It is a disturbing fact of life in America and one of the leading causes of death for young black men in the U.S., who are 2.5 times more likely than white men to be killed by police. It's a reality that 3 heartbroken families are here trying to change, and they're telling their stories with the help from these new PSAs by Roc Nation and the NFL. Take a look. 3 young men with big dreams, bright futures, and their whole lives ahead of them. Danny Henry.
Our beloved Danny, our firstborn son.
He's a kid who has just the biggest heart and a love for people.
I love you.
Yeah. The day he was born, my husband said he's gonna be a football player.
Danny wanted to be an athlete. I enjoyed watching him play and fulfill his dream.
Antwon Rose Jr.
My beautiful son, Antwon, is intelligent, funny, entertaining, so quick-witted. He is my angel. As he got older, he decided he wanted to be a chemical engineer. So that was his intention in going to college.
And Botham Ja.
Botham Ja is my son. He is the light in any dark room.
Botham is my little brother. He is the kindest, sweetest person you could ever know.
They lived in different parts of the country, but fell victim to the same tragic, all too common cycle of violence in America. 20-year-old Danny was shot and killed by police in 2010 while sitting in a car after a college football game celebration in Mount Pleasant, New York. 17-year-old honor student Antwon was shot in the back 3 times by a rookie officer at a traffic stop in East Pittsburgh in 2018. And 26-year-old Botham was shot dead in his own Dallas, Texas apartment in 2018 by his neighbor, an off-duty police officer who claims she got off on the wrong floor and thought she was entering her own apartment. They were each robbed of their futures, but their families want to turn these tragedies into a movement to overcome the fear and misunderstanding that's causing a deadly American epidemic.
I know that it'll never be the same. You don't hear his basketball coming through or me yelling out the door to stop bouncing that ball. The world hurts because they lost somebody who could have made a true impact.
What I wish people could experience is Danny at 30. Would he be retiring from the NFL? Would he be on an NFL sideline coaching? What would his children look like? What would they be doing?
The world has lost a great man. He was destined for greatness.
I look forward to the day both of them would have gotten married, having kids.
There are things that must be done and must be done quickly. We must change this all around.
Please welcome Danny Henry's mom, Angela Henry, Antwon Rose Jr.'s mom, Michelle Kenny, and Botham Ja's sister, Alyssa Findlay. So, Angela, the police officer that killed your son, Danny, reported that he shot your son because he tried to run him over. No charges were brought against this officer, and Danny's friends who were in the car said that's not what happened. It took y'all 7 years to get to the truth. And what did you discover getting to that truth?
We're grateful. We had a 30-year police veteran that was there that night that came forward and told the truth about what happened.
And what was that?
It was that our son was told to move. He was in a fire lane, and a police officer tapped on his window and asked him to move. Another officer thought that he claims he thought he heard someone say stop, and decided to stop by shooting at our son and killing him in the car. And if it wasn't for the 30-year police veteran and all of the other witnesses, we probably wouldn't have the truth that we have now. And it's important to note that the other police officer came forward and said that the only threat that night was the officer that killed our son. Wow. Our son wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't speeding. He wasn't disobeying an order. In fact, he was trying to slow down and do whatever they asked him to do.
Right.
And after he was shot, they made him get out of the car, stand up. They put handcuffs on him, and laid him on the ground.
Wow. Michelle, your son Antoine was unarmed when he ran from the police at a traffic stop in East Pittsburgh. The officer shot him 3 times in the back, and the officer admitted that he couldn't be sure that your son had a gun. But he was found, that officer, not guilty on all charges. Protests erupted in Pittsburgh. How did you react when the verdict came in?
For me, it wasn't a surprise. I was more concerned with my daughter and my family members. But I totally understand how the system works, and I wasn't shocked at all. I held that close to the vest, though, because I wanted to protect my daughter and my mother. But I wasn't surprised. It's the way the system works.
Alyssa, the police called you first because you were the contact that both of them had. And when they told you that your brother had been shot and killed, this story, as it got more and more out there to people, stunned everyone because no one could understand how it was possible that you're sitting in your apartment and someone comes in and shoots you dead.
Right.
And there's no, how did they explain it?
I received a call from a social worker at the hospital. That was my first call. She wanted me to identify my brother over the phone. She asked me if I knew Botham Jean. She asked me for his address, his date of birth, where does he work. When I answered all these questions, I said, what happened? And she told me he was brought into emergency with a gunshot wound. And I said, where did this happen? She said she doesn't have the details. She thinks it's around where he lived. And I asked her, is he alive? And she said, I'm sorry to have to tell you he succumbed to his injuries. And at that point, I was in shock because I was not expecting this. And I said, I don't understand what you're saying. And she said he was shot through his heart and he died.
In his apartment, eating ice cream, as I recall.
Yes.
You're all featured in PSAs about police shootings that are sponsored by Roc Nation and the NFL. And I am thrilled that you are getting these stories out because I have a 17-year-old boy, and I think about this all the time. And I talk about this all the time. Colin Kaepernick protested police shootings and took a knee because of this very issue. And many people, including myself, felt like the NFL blacklisted him because of this. Some people think, and I think it, that the NFL is producing these PSAs to give themselves cover. And I think they're using good families to do it. How do you respond to that?
I'm a Cap fanatic. I mean, die-hard Cap fan. I was a Cap fan way before he took the knee.
Me too.
And I will forever be grateful for him opening this conversation. But Antoine is my son. So when you get a call from Roc Nation and the NFL and they say, we want to take your platform to the next level, we don't want anything from you and we have a plan, I have to remember that Antoine is my son. So I'm all in.
Yeah.
And I think we're all hoping to get the same result. Kaepernick was trying to bring awareness, and he did. And we're doing the same thing. And with the reach of both the NFL and Roc Nation, and being here on The View, we're reaching even more people that may not know our stories, and now they do.
Yeah, I look at it as Kaepernick started the conversation, and with Roc Nation and the NFL, they're now taking another step. And it doesn't end here with Roc Nation and the NFL. We're looking for anyone with a platform to keep this conversation going so that we can come up with a resolution.
Some sort of resolution.
Yeah.
And you've spoken to Roger Goodell.
Yes, we have.
We have.
Did you get a sense that he gets it?
I did. You can't fake empathy, especially when you're a parent. And I watched his facial gestures. I listened to every word he said. He cried when I cried. He didn't rush us. He didn't ask us to leave. He was the kindest man. And you don't really get to see that in the interviews that he does. But that man shed tears for my son.
And it's an opportunity that we had to share personally our stories with him, because maybe he hears them from a distance, but this is a chance for him to meet families, truly get to know us and understand what we're trying to do.
And the other thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands, this is not an anti-police conversation.
Right.
All of these women have police officers in their families.
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind, okay? This is a conversation about what can we do better because stuff is happening. We understand that you all are in this together. I thank y'all for coming. I want you to just know that anything we can do, we will continue to do.